The notification light on Destiny's phone blinked persistently against the cracked screen. She sat on the worn couch in her small apartment, staring at the message from her friend Keisha. "Girl, you need to see this video now. Isn't this your dad?" If you love your family and want to listen to amazing and shocking stories, click on subscribe and avoid 20 years of bad luck in your life. The walls of her apartment felt closer than usual. The peeling wallpaper and water stains she'd grown accustomed to suddenly more apparent. Her mother's old sewing machine hummed in the background, a constant reminder of their struggles and perseverance. The projects where she grew up weren't perfect, but they were home. They were real. The message continued to stare back at her, unread notifications piling up as more friends recognized Charles Winston, the tech mogul, in a viral interview where he expressed regret about abandoning his daughter 20 years ago. Destiny's hands trembled as she grabbed her jacket and keys. She couldn't watch this here, not with the memories of her mother working 3 jobs hanging heavy in every corner. The local cafe offered anonymity among the morning crowd of commuters and students. Destiny chose a corner table, away from curious eyes, and finally pressed play. The video showed Charles in his element, expensive suit, confident smile, commanding presence. But when the interviewer asked about regrets, his facade cracked. "My biggest regret," Charles's voice wavered, "leaving my daughter, Destiny. She'd be 25 now. I tell myself I left to build something great, but that's a lie I can't live with anymore." Heads turned as Destiny's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. A businessman 2 tables over frowned at the disruption before returning to his laptop. A barista paused mid-wipe, reading the shock on Destiny's face. The cafe's ambient noise faded to a distant hum as she watched her father's composed exterior crumble on screen. "If you're out there, Destiny, I want to make things right." The video ended, but Destiny remained frozen, her cold coffee forgotten. The world had shifted on its axis, and she felt dizzy with the implications. Her phone buzzed again. More messages, more people recognizing her father, more pressure to respond. The drive home was a blur. Her mother, Gloria, sat at their small kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. She didn't need to ask if Destiny had seen the video. The answer was written across her daughter's face. "He's dying," Gloria said quietly, her voice carrying years of unspoken pain. "I saw the full interview. He needs a kidney transplant." Destiny sank into the chair across from her mother. Why now? After all these years? Maybe he really does want to make amends. Gloria reached across the table, her weathered hands covering Destiny's. Or maybe he just needs something from you. The question is, are you ready to find out which it is? The weight of the decision pressed down on Destiny's shoulders. 25 years of questions, of wondering why she wasn't enough, of watching her mother sacrifice everything, all leading to this moment. The projects had shaped her, taught her resilience, shown her what real strength looked like through her mother's example. "I need to know," Destiny finally said. "Not just for him, but for me." Gloria nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Then pack your bags. But remember who you are, baby girl. Remember where you come from." That evening, Destiny stood in her bedroom, a small suitcase open on her bed. Each item she packed felt like a step toward an uncertain future. The walls of her childhood home seemed to whisper warnings and encouragements in equal measure. As she zipped the suitcase closed, her gaze fell on a photo of her and her mother at her high school graduation. Both of them beaming, proud of how far they'd come despite everything. The decision was made. Tomorrow, she would leave the projects behind and step into a world she never thought she'd be part of. But first, she had one more night to be just Destiny from the projects, daughter of Gloria Williams, the woman who never gave up. She didn't sleep that night, instead watching the city lights flicker through her window, wondering if somewhere in Los Angeles, Charles Winston was lying awake too, thinking about the daughter he'd finally decided to remember. The iron gates of the Winston estate parted silently, revealing a driveway that seemed to stretch for miles. Destiny's worn duffel bag felt out of place against the manicured lawns and pristine fountains. Her Uber driver whistled low, taking in the Mediterranean-style mansion that loomed ahead. "This the right address?" he asked, double-checking his phone. Destiny nodded, her throat too tight for words. The fare had cost nearly a day's wages at her old job, but she'd insisted on arriving on her own terms, rather than accepting Charles's offer of a private car. A uniformed staff member appeared as soon as the car stopped, reaching for her bag. "Ms. Winston, we've been expecting you." "It's Williams," Destiny corrected automatically. "I kept my mother's name." The staff member's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Of course, Miss Williams. Mr. Winston is waiting in the main study. Allow me to show you to your room first, so you can freshen up." The marble foyer echoed with each step of her worn sneakers. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across walls adorned with artwork that probably cost more than her mother's annual salary. A grand staircase curved upward, its banister gleaming with fresh polish. Her assigned room was bigger than her entire apartment back home. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked an infinity pool that seemed to merge with the distant ocean. The walk-in closet alone could have housed a small family. "There are fresh towels in the ensuite bathroom," the staff member informed her. "Mr. Winston requested you join him when you're ready." Simply press study on the house phone. Alone in the massive room, Destiny sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, its Egyptian cotton duvet cool beneath her fingers. The reality of her situation hit her. She was sitting in a mansion worth millions, about to meet the father who had never once attended a school play, never helped with homework, never remembered a birthday. After a quick shower in a bathroom with more settings than her old car, Destiny changed into fresh clothes. She'd bought them specially for this meeting. New jeans and a simple blouse that had stretched her budget, but felt necessary for facing Charles Winston. The study door was solid oak, imported from some forest she'd probably never heard of. Destiny knocked twice. "Come in." The voice was firm, authoritative, the same voice from the viral video, but lacking its emotional crack. Charles Winston stood as she entered, and Destiny's breath caught. Looking at him was like seeing an alternate version of herself. Same high cheekbones, same dark eyes, same way of holding their shoulders. He wore casual luxury, a cashmere sweater probably worth more than her rent, Italian loafers, a watch that caught the light from the floor-to-ceiling windows behind his desk. "Destiny," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You look just like your mother." The comment stung more than it should have. "Funny you'd remember what she looks like." His smile faltered. "Please, sit. We have a lot to discuss." The leather chair was soft, expensive, but Destiny perched on its edge, ready to run if needed. Charles settled behind his massive desk, a barrier between them. "I suppose you're wondering why I reached out now," he began, folding his hands on the desk. The kidney, Destiny's directness, seemed to surprise him. Mum saw the full interview. Charles's composure cracked slightly. "Yes, well, that's part of it, but not all. I've been following your life from afar, Destiny. Your graduation, your job at the community center. I'm proud." "Don't." Destiny cut him off. "You don't get to be proud of things you weren't there for." Silence filled the study. Outside, a gardener trimmed perfectly shaped hedges with mechanical precision. "You're right," Charles finally said. "I wasn't there. And yes, I need a kidney. My condition is genetic. You should get tested too, actually. But that's not why I wanted you here. I'm dying, Destiny. And before I do, I want to make things right." "Why did you leave?" The question burst from her before she could stop it. Charles stood, walking to the window. "It's complicated. Try me some other time." His tone carried finality. "You must be tired from your journey. We'll talk more over dinner." Destiny recognized the dismissal. As she stood to leave, Charles spoke again. "I've set up a trust fund for you. Consider it 25 years of missed birthdays and Christmases." She paused at the door. "Mum worked 3 jobs to put me through school. We never needed your money then. I'm not sure I want it now." Back in her assigned room, Destiny stared at her reflection in a mirror that cost more than her car. The mansion's opulence felt suffocating, each luxury item a reminder of what Charles had chosen over his family. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "You okay, baby girl?" Destiny looked around the room, at all the things she'd never had growing up. All the comforts her mother couldn't provide, despite working herself to exhaustion. She typed back, "No, but I will be." Sleep refused to come in the too-soft bed with its mountain of pillows. At midnight, Destiny found herself wandering the silent halls of the Winston mansion, her sock-covered feet silent against the marble floors. The house felt different at night, less imposing, more honest somehow. Moonlight filtered through massive windows, casting shadows that made the expensive artwork look almost ghostly. Every surface gleamed with wealth, gold-leafed mirrors, crystal vases, antique furniture that probably had its own insurance policy. But it was the photographs that caught her attention. Carefully arranged along one hallway, they documented Charles's rise to success: ribbon cuttings, charity galas, business award ceremonies. She noticed the dates. The first photo was from 1999, the year he left. The sound of her own bitter laugh startled her. While he'd been shaking hands with senators and CEOs, her mother had been learning to make school lunches stretch an extra day. The door at the end of the hallway stood slightly ajar, some kind of home office, smaller than the formal study where they'd met earlier. Destiny hesitated only briefly before pushing it open. Unlike the rest of the house's pristine organization, this room showed signs of recent disruption. Filing cabinet drawers hadn't been fully closed, papers scattered across a desk. Her eyes landed on a cardboard box shoved halfway under the desk, its lid askew. It looked out of place among the polished mahogany and leather. Too ordinary, too much like something from her own world. Inside, beneath a layer of dust, lay a stack of photographs held together with a rubber band. The first image made her throat tight. Her mother, young and radiant, standing in front of their old apartment building. She was wearing a yellow sundress, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. Destiny had never seen her mother look so happy. More photos spilled out. Gloria at a park, reading on a bench. Gloria cooking in their tiny first kitchen. Gloria holding newborn Destiny, exhausted but beaming. Charles didn't appear in any of them, but they were clearly taken by him. Intimate moments he'd captured and then abandoned, just like their family. At the bottom of the box, she found a letter in her mother's handwriting, dated 3 months after Charles left. "Charles, the baby asked for you today. She's learning so many words, but Dada breaks my heart every time. I know you think leaving was the right choice, that you need to focus on your business, that you can't be the father she deserves right now. But she deserves the chance to decide that for herself. We don't need your money. We never did. But she needs her father, not the businessman, not the ambitious dreamer, just her dad. She's starting to walk now. She takes a few steps and falls, but she always gets back up, always. She's stronger than both of us already. I'm not writing to ask you to come back. I'm writing to tell you what you're missing. One day, you'll regret these moments you'll never get back. Gloria." The letter trembled in Destiny's hands. Memories flooded back. Fragments of her childhood she'd tried to forget. Her mother teaching her to read by lamplight because they couldn't afford to keep all the lights on. Gloria sewing through the night to make Destiny a prom dress when they couldn't afford one from the store. The pride in her mother's eyes at every school achievement, every small victory. More letters filled the box, their dates spanning years. Some were unopened, others showed signs of frequent reading, their creases worn soft. Her mother had never mentioned writing them, had never let on that while working multiple jobs and raising a child alone, she'd still found time to reach out to the man who abandoned them. Destiny sank into the office chair, letting the weight of these discoveries wash over her. The mansion's grandeur felt hollow now, its luxury a poor substitute for the simple dignity of her mother's love. In their small apartment, they'd had cracks in the walls, but no cracks in their bond. Here, everything looked perfect on the surface, but the foundations felt unstable. A particularly thick envelope caught her attention. Unlike the others, this one was addressed to Charles in unfamiliar handwriting. The postmark was from a law firm, dated just weeks before the viral video that had brought her here. Before she could reach for it, a floorboard creaked in the hallway. Destiny quickly returned everything to the box, sliding it back under the desk. She slipped out of the office just as footsteps approached, probably security doing their rounds. Back in her room, Destiny lay awake, processing what she'd found. Her phone showed a missed call from her mother. Despite the late hour, she texted, "Did you ever stop writing to him?" The response came quickly, "Only when I realized the letters were for me, not him. They helped me let go." Destiny stared at the message, understanding flowing through her. Her mother hadn't been writing to change Charles's mind. She'd been writing to free her own heart, to document the life he'd chosen to miss, to prove they could survive without him. As dawn began to paint the sky outside her window, Destiny made a decision. She would stay, but not for Charles. She would stay to understand why the man who took so many photos of her pregnant mother, who documented their early happiness, had chosen to lock those memories away in a dusty box, while he built his empire of empty rooms and hollow success. The weight of the kidney request hung in the air, but now it felt like just one piece of a larger puzzle. What was in that legal envelope? Why had Charles really reached out now? The answers were in this house somewhere, hidden behind the perfect facade, and Destiny was determined to find them. Charles's idea of helping Destiny adjust to her new life involved throwing her into the deep end of Los Angeles high society. The garden party at the Winston estate brought out what Charles called the right sort of people: business associates, social climbers, and their carefully curated offspring. Destiny stood at the edge of the perfectly manicured lawn, clutching a champagne flute she hadn't sipped from. Her simple sundress, while new, felt inadequate among the designer labels surrounding her. Conversations about summer homes in the Hamptons and private jet shares floated past like a foreign language. "That's Charles Winston's daughter," a woman in Chanel whispered to her companion, not bothering to lower her voice enough. "The one from the projects. How charitable of him to take her in." Her friend responded with a smirk. Though one does wonder about the timing, given his condition. Destiny's grip tightened on her glass. She'd faced prejudice before, but this variety was new, wrapped in scarves and dripping with false sympathy. A server passed with fresh drinks, deliberately avoiding her eye. "They're all sharks, you know." A voice beside her made Destiny turn. A young woman about her age stood there, wearing an expensive black dress like armor. The longer you're in these circles, the more you realize they're just expensive sharks. "And you're not?" Destiny asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. The woman laughed, surprisingly genuine. "Oh, I'm definitely a shark. I'm just honest about it. I'm Mia Chen. My father runs half the tech startups in Silicon Valley, and my mother thinks that makes her the queen of San Francisco society." Destiny Williams. She paused before adding, "Charles Winston's daughter. I know who you are. Everyone here does. They've been talking about nothing else since the video went viral." Mia surveyed the crowd with practiced disdain. "Want to get out of here? I know a spot where we can watch these vultures without having to actually talk to them." Against her better judgment, Destiny followed Mia through the mansion to a small balcony overlooking the gardens. Below, the party continued its careful dance of social manipulation. "So," Mia said, kicking off her Louboutins and sitting cross-legged on a chair, "how are you handling it all? Honestly, I feel like I'm in a foreign country without a translator." "That's because you are. Look." Mia pointed to various groups below. The women by the fountain, old money, judging everyone else's new wealth. The group near the roses, tech moguls like our fathers, competing over who has the most disruptive startup. And the younger crowd by the pool, trust fund babies, who've never worked a day in their lives, but think they understand the world's problems. Destiny studied Mia. You don't seem to like these people very much. I like reality, Mia replied. Something severely lacking around here. She was quiet for a moment, before continuing. My brother died last year. Overdose. Nobody talks about it, of course. Bad for business. But you know what these people said at his funeral? At least he didn't embarrass the family by surviving and continuing his addiction. That's when I stopped pretending any of this was normal. The admission hung in the air between them. Destiny recognized the pain in Mia's voice. It was the same tone her mother used when talking about Charles's abandonment. I'm sorry about your brother, Destiny said softly. I'm sorry about your childhood without a father, Mia responded. We all have our scars here. Some of us just don't bother hiding them anymore. Below, Charles worked the crowd like a conductor, his charm turned up to full volume. He caught sight of Destiny on the balcony and frowned slightly at her absence from the party. He's going to expect you to play the grateful daughter, Mia observed. They all have expectations here. The question is, are you going to play the role they want, or are you going to be real? I'm here to understand why he left, Destiny said. Not to become someone I'm not. Mia smiled. Good, because I've got some information you might find interesting. These parties, they're not just social events. They're business meetings, disguised as gatherings. And your father's been having a lot of private conversations lately about more than just his health. What do you mean? My father's company does business with Winston Tech. Last week, there was a closed-door meeting that ended with a lot of angry executives. Nobody's talking about why, but something big is happening. Mia leaned forward. Want to help me figure out what it is? Destiny looked at her new friend, recognizing the same hunger for truth she felt herself. Why would you help me? Because in this world of fake smiles and hidden agendas, I think you might be the only real person here. Mia stood, slipping her shoes back on. Besides, I'm tired of watching people like our fathers pretend they're gods while playing with other people's lives. As they rejoined the party, Destiny felt something she hadn't expected to find in this mansion. An ally. Mia might be part of this world, but she saw through its gilded facade. Together, they might actually uncover what Charles was hiding. The party continued into the evening, but now Destiny watched it with new eyes. Every handshake, every whispered conversation, every subtle nod could be part of a larger story, one that might explain why Charles had really brought her into his life now. After all these years, on her phone, a text from her mother glowed. Stay true to yourself, baby girl. Looking at Mia, who gave her a subtle wink from across the room, Destiny realized that staying true to herself might be easier with a friend who understood both worlds she was trying to bridge. The Winston Tech headquarters occupied 40 floors of gleaming steel and glass in downtown Los Angeles. Charles had insisted Destiny learn the family business, arranging for her to shadow various department heads. What he hadn't counted on was her attention to detail, a skill honed by years of helping her mother balance threadbare budgets. Numbers didn't lie, and something in Winston Tech's numbers wasn't adding up. These investment reports, Destiny said to Sarah Martinez, a senior accountant, who'd been with the company for 15 years. The dates don't match the merger timeline. Sarah glanced at the door before lowering her voice. You've got good eyes. Most people don't notice that. My mother taught accounting at community college on weekends, Destiny replied, studying the documents more closely. She always said numbers tell stories if you know how to read them. Your mother sounds wise. Sarah hesitated. Listen, there are things about the company's early days, stories that never made it to the press. Before she could continue, Charles appeared in the doorway, his presence immediately changing the atmosphere. Destiny, I didn't expect to find you here. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Sarah, would you excuse us? I need to speak with my daughter. Sarah gathered her papers quickly, avoiding eye contact as she left. Charles closed the door behind her. The accounting department isn't really the best place to start learning about the business, he said, his tone carefully measured. Why don't you spend time in marketing instead? Much more suitable. Because marketing doesn't show me how you actually built this company. Destiny held up the reports. These numbers suggest you acquired your first major contract the same month you left us. But the dates are wrong. There's a 3-month gap that's been covered up. Charles's facade cracked slightly. Business is complex. Destiny. Not everything is as black and white as balance sheets. Then explain it to me. What happened in those 3 months? Instead of answering, Charles walked to the window, looking out over the city he'd helped shape. I made choices. Difficult ones. Everything I built for you. No, Destiny said, her voice firm. You built it for yourself. We were fine without your empire, were you? He turned, his expression hardening. Living in those projects. Your mother working herself to exhaustion. I wanted better for you. Then why didn't you provide it? Why disappear completely? Charles picked up the reports, sliding them into his briefcase. Some questions don't have simple answers. Focus on the present, Destiny. On the future, the past won't change. As he reached for the door, Destiny spoke again. I met Regina Thompson yesterday. Charles froze, his hand on the doorknob. She worked with Mum at the diner back then. She told me some interesting stories about those 3 months between when you left and when Winston Tech suddenly became successful. Regina Thompson is a disgruntled former employee who doesn't know what she's talking about. Charles's voice had turned cold. She said Mum came to your office once when I was sick. We needed money for antibiotics. You had her thrown out by security. That's not what happened. Then what did happen? Destiny challenged. Because right now, I'm finding a lot of stories that don't match the image you're trying to project. Charles opened his briefcase again, pulling out a check. Here, this should help ease your concerns about the past. The amount written on the check made Destiny's head spin. More money than her mother had earned in 20 years of hard work. You still don't get it, she said, leaving the check on the desk. I'm not here for your money. I'm here for the truth. The truth, Charles laughed bitterly. The truth is, I built something extraordinary. Something that provides jobs for thousands of people. Something that will be your legacy too, if you're smart enough to accept it. At what cost? Everything has a cost. Destiny. The sooner you learn that, the better. He opened the door. Take some time to think about what you really want. The check will be in my office when you're ready to be reasonable. After he left, Destiny sat in the empty office, surrounded by spreadsheets that told only part of the story. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mia. Found something in my father's old files. Meet me at Laurent in an hour. Don't tell anyone where you're going. The way Charles had reacted to Regina's name, his insistence on keeping her away from accounting, the missing 3 months. Pieces of a puzzle were starting to come together. But the picture they formed was darker than Destiny had imagined. She gathered her things, leaving the check behind. As she waited for the elevator, Sarah Martinez hurried past, deliberately bumping into her. In that brief contact, Destiny felt paper being pressed into her hand. In the privacy of the elevator, she unfolded the note. Your mother wasn't the only one he betrayed. When you're ready for the whole story, call this number. Destiny stared at the phone number, her throat tight. The elegant offices suddenly felt suffocating, their luxury built on a foundation of secrets she was only beginning to uncover. She thought of her mother, working honest jobs for honest pay, teaching her that integrity mattered more than success. As she left the building, Charles watched from his top-floor office, already making calls to contain what he correctly suspected was about to unravel. The Bentley appeared in the mansion's circular driveway on a Tuesday morning, a massive red bow perched awkwardly on its roof. Charles stood beside it, beaming with the practiced smile of a man used to buying his way out of difficult situations. Happy early birthday, he said, holding out the keys. I thought you might want something more suitable than Ubers for getting around LA. Destiny stared at the car, its pristine black paint reflecting the California sun. The price tag would have paid for her entire college education twice over. My birthday is not for 6 months. Consider it making up for lost time then. Charles placed the keys in her hand, closing her fingers around them. I want you to feel at home here, Destiny. To have the things you deserve. The metal felt cold against her palm, heavy with implications. Like the check you left in your office yesterday. That too. He straightened his tie. A tell she'd started to recognize when he was uncomfortable. About our conversation in accounting. I may have been too harsh. You're curious. That's natural. But some aspects of business are better left in the past. A message from Mia lit up Destiny's phone. Documents confirmed. Meeting in 20. Thank you for the car, Destiny said, handing the keys back to Charles. But I prefer to earn what I have. His smile faltered. This attitude, this resistance to accepting your new position, it has to stop, Destiny. You're a Winston now. I'm a Williams, she corrected him. And I need to go. In the Bentley, he held out the keys again. In an Uber, she left him standing there, the expensive gift gleaming uselessly behind him. Mia was waiting at their usual cafe, her designer handbag stuffed with papers. You look like you've seen a ghost, Mia said, as Destiny sat down. Close. I just turned down a Bentley. Mia whistled low. The guilt gifts are starting early. Must mean we're getting close to something. She pulled out a folder. Speaking of which, remember those angry executives from the party? I found out why they were upset. She spread several documents across the table. These are internal memos from my father's company dating back to when Winston Tech first started. Look at the signatures. Destiny studied the papers. These are partnership agreements. Were partnership agreements, Mia corrected. Every person who signed these documents was bought out or pushed out within 3 months of Winston Tech's first major success, including my uncle. Your uncle. Mia's expression darkened. My father's younger brother. He was one of the original investors in Winston Tech. He lost everything when Charles restructured the company. Had a breakdown, eventually drank himself to death. The pieces started clicking together. The missing 3 months in the financial records were when Charles systematically eliminated everyone who helped him build the company. Mia finished. He used their investments to secure the government contract that made Winston Tech successful, then found legal loopholes to deny them their shares. Destiny felt sick. That's when he left us. He needed to focus on betraying everyone who trusted him, Mia said quietly. My father protected him back then, helped cover it up. That's why he still has a seat at the table. But now what? Mia leaned forward. Now Charles is dying, and there's panic in the boardroom. No clear succession plan, no guarantee the company will maintain its government contracts without him. And suddenly, his long-lost daughter appears. You think he brought me here to take over the company? I think he brought you here because he needs something. The kidney. Yes, but more than that. He needs a legacy, someone to protect everything he built. Mia's eyes were intense. Someone who doesn't know how he built it. Destiny thought about the check in his office, the Bentley in the driveway. Each gift a step toward making her complicit in his world. There's more, Mia said, pulling out her phone. I got these from Sarah Martinez. She played a voicemail, Charles's voice. 25 years younger, but unmistakable, speaking to Destiny's mother. The company's about to take off, Gloria. I can't risk any distractions. Take the money, sign the papers, and let's make this clean. It's better for everyone. Destiny's hands shook. He tried to buy her silence. She refused, Mia said. That's when he had her thrown out of the office. Sarah kept this recording all these years, waiting for the right moment. Why help me now? Because Charles is making moves again, big ones. Sarah overheard him on the phone yesterday. Something about ensuring family control of the company. He's planning something, Destiny, and it involves you. The cafe felt too exposed suddenly. Through the window, Destiny noticed a black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street. We're being watched, she said quietly. Mia didn't turn around. Probably since I started digging. Welcome to the real family business. paranoia and surveillance. How do you live like this? I don't. Not anymore. Mia gathered the documents. That's why I'm helping you. This world, these people, they take everything good and twist it into something ugly. Don't let him do that to you. As they left the cafe separately to avoid attention, Destiny's phone buzzed with a message from Charles. The Bentley will be in the garage when you change your mind. Family takes care of family. She thought about her mother, who had chosen poverty with dignity over wealth with compromise. About Sarah Martinez, keeping evidence for 25 years. About Mia's uncle, destroyed by the same ambition that had torn Destiny's family apart. The black SUV followed her Uber back to the mansion. A reminder that in Charles's world, nothing, not even family, was beyond surveillance and control. The private dining room of the Winston mansion felt like a courtroom. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, throwing prisms across the dark mahogany table. Charles sat at the head, his usual confident posture slightly diminished by fatigue. The dialysis was taking its toll, though he tried to hide it behind expensive suits and practiced smiles. I thought we could have dinner, just the two of us, he said, watching the staff serve the first course. We haven't really talked since your visit to the office. Destiny noted the strategic timing, after his discovery of her meetings with Mia, after the failed attempt with the Bentley. What would you like to talk about, Charles? The weather? Or maybe those partnership agreements from 25 years ago? The soup spoon paused halfway to his mouth. I see Mia Chen has been sharing stories. You should be careful about taking everything she says at face value. Her family has complicated feelings about past business decisions, like her uncle's suicide. Charles set down his spoon carefully. Business failures happen, Destiny. Not everyone is cut out for the corporate world. Henry Chen made his own choices. After you stripped him of his shares, after you used his investment to secure the government contract. Destiny's voice remained steady. The same month you told Mum you couldn't be distracted by a family. You've been busy. Charles dabbed his lips with his napkin. But you're looking at the past through a very narrow lens. Everything I did was legal. Legal doesn't mean right. Right, Charles laughed. But there was no humor in it. You want to talk about right? How about watching your own father drink himself to death because he couldn't handle business pressure? How about growing up knowing that one mistake, one moment of weakness, could cost you everything? Destiny leaned forward. Is that what we were to you? A weakness? You were a complication. The words came out sharp, honest. I had a chance to build something extraordinary, but I needed to be free of obligations. We were your family. Family is a luxury in this world, Destiny. One I couldn't afford then. He gestured at the opulent room around them. But I can afford it now. I'm trying to give you everything I couldn't before. Everything except the truth. Destiny pulled out her phone, playing Sarah Martinez's recording. Charles's younger voice filled the room, cold and calculating as he tried to buy off her mother. The color drained from his face. Where did you get that? Does it matter? What matters is that Mum wasn't the only one you tried to silence. How many others were there, Charles? How many lives did you ruin building your empire? Charles stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You have no idea what it takes to build something like this. The sacrifices required. Sacrifices. Destiny's voice rose. You mean like Mum working double shifts while pregnant? Like her walking 2 miles to work because we couldn't afford bus fare? Those kinds of sacrifices. I sent checks that she never cashed. Because unlike you, she understood that integrity matters more than money. Charles gripped the back of his chair, knuckles white. Your mother, she knew about the business deals, about Henry Chen, about all of it. She threatened to expose everything. The revelation hit Destiny like a physical blow. What? She came to the office that day, yes, but not just for antibiotics. She had figured out what I was doing with the company. Said she couldn't let me destroy more families. His laugh was bitter. Always so righteous, your mother. So concerned with everyone else's welfare. so you had security throw her out. I offered her money first, enough to move you both anywhere she wanted, to give you a better life." He ran a hand through his hair, showing his age for the first time. "She chose poverty over comfort, chose to raise you with her principles. Her principles kept me alive," Destiny shot back. "Kept me human while you were here, in your golden cage, becoming this. Charles spread his arms. "This is success, Destiny. This is power. This is what I can give you, if you'd just stop fighting it. Is that why you really brought me here? To groom me as your successor?" "I brought you here because I'm dying." The words exploded from him. "Because every doctor I've seen says the same thing. Without a kidney transplant, I have months, maybe less." He sank back into his chair. "And yes, I need someone to take over. Someone with Winston blood. Someone who can protect what I've built. Even though you built it on betrayal. I built it on necessity." His voice turned cold again. "Your mother knew that day that she could destroy everything. Instead, she chose to walk away. To raise you in poverty rather than accept reality. She chose to raise me with love instead of lies." Destiny stood, her untouched food growing cold. "You know what I remember most about growing up? Not the poverty, not the struggles. I remember Mum telling me every single night that I was worthy of love, just as I was. No conditions, no requirements, no empire needed." Charles's face hardened. "And where did all that love get you? Working at a community center, living in a one-room apartment. You could have had everything." "I did have everything. I had a parent who showed up, who stayed, who taught me that character matters more than cash." She walked to the door, then turned back. "Mum knew what you were doing with the company, but she chose to let you live with your choices. She protected you, even after everything. That's the difference between you and her. She understood that real strength isn't about power or money. It's about doing what's right, even when it hurts." Destiny, his voice cracked slightly. "I'll stay until we complete the medical tests," she said. "Because unlike you, I don't abandon family, even when they deserve it. But don't mistake my presence for acceptance. And don't ever think you can buy my silence like you tried to buy Mum's." She left him there, alone in his massive dining room, surrounded by all the wealth he'd chosen over love. In her room, her phone lit up with a text from her mother. "You okay?" Destiny typed back. "He told me about that day at his office. About what you knew." The response came quickly. "Some choices define us. I chose you." Looking around at the luxury that could have been hers, Destiny felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Her mother hadn't just protected her from poverty, she'd protected her from becoming like Charles, from learning to value things over people, power over principles. But as she prepared for bed, a new message arrived from Mia. "Emergency, the legal documents I found, they're gone. And my father just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. The game wasn't over. Charles might be dying, but he still had moves to make." And now, Destiny realized she needed to decide what kind of player she was going to be. After the disastrous dinner, Destiny couldn't sleep. The mansion's silence felt oppressive, every tick of the expensive clock marking time she was losing. She returned to the small office where she'd found the first box of letters, determined to uncover more truth. This time, she looked higher, checking the built-in bookshelf's top shelves. Behind a row of leather-bound first editions, she found another box, newer than the first. Inside were more letters from her mother, but these were different. Unopened, their seals intact, dates spanning her entire childhood. With trembling hands, she opened the first one. "Charles, today was Destiny's first day of high school. She's wearing the second-hand uniform. I altered myself, but you should have seen how proud she looked. She told me not to worry about the holes in her shoes, because her brain matters more than her feet. She's starting to ask questions about you, real ones. Not just where is he, but why did he choose to leave? I don't tell her about that day in your office, about what I discovered. She deserves to form her own opinions about her father." Gloria, another letter, dated 3 years later. Charles, Destiny won first place in the state science fair. Her project was about efficient resource allocation in low-income communities. She's turning our struggles into solutions for others. The prize money is going straight to her college fund. The local paper did a story about her win. I know you saw it because one of your assistants called to offer a donation to her college fund. I refused, just like I refused your money that day in your office. Some debts can't be paid with cash. Gloria, the letters continued, each one a snapshot of a life Charles had chosen to ignore. But it was a letter near the bottom of the box that made Destiny's blood run cold. This one wasn't from her mother. It was from Charles's lawyer, dated just before his viral video, Succession Planning and Medical Trust, Mr. Winston. As discussed, the board's concerns about succession can be addressed through the proposed strategy. Once established as your heir, your daughter's status as a blood relative will satisfy the trust requirements. The medical necessity adds sympathy to the narrative, which should help smooth any questions about timing. However, I must advise caution regarding the Chen documents. If they surface, the entire structure could be compromised. Recommend immediate action to secure any remaining evidence. Jonathan Pierce-esque. Destiny read the letter 3 times. Its clinical language revealing the calculated nature of Charles's sudden desire for reconciliation. She wasn't just a potential kidney donor, she was a legal requirement, a tool to maintain control of the company. Her phone buzzed. Mia had sent a photo of another document. Found this in my father's safe. It's from the original Winston Tech founding documents. There's a clause about family control. Charles needs a blood relative to maintain voting rights after his death. You're not just his daughter. You're his only option for keeping control of the company. As if on cue, another text arrived. This one from Charles. We need to talk. The medical tests came back. We're a match. The room spun slightly. Destiny sat on the floor, surrounded by her mother's unopened letters. Each one represented a moment Charles could have chosen differently. Each one showed the stark contrast between her mother's honest love and Charles's calculated manipulation. She found one final letter. This one, recent, still sealed. Charles, Destiny doesn't know I'm writing this. She thinks I stopped years ago. But I saw your interview, your tears, your claims of regret. I want to believe you've changed. For her sake, I want to believe this isn't another one of your strategic moves. But I remember that day in your office. I remember the look in your eyes when I threatened to expose what you did to Henry Chen and the others. It wasn't fear I saw, it was calculation. You were already thinking of ways to discredit me, to protect your empire. If you're bringing our daughter into your life now, after all these years, I pray it's with honest intentions. But I know you, Charles. I know how you think 10 moves ahead, how every piece on your board serves a purpose. Don't make her one of your pieces. She deserves better than to be part of your game. Gloria Destiny's phone buzzed again. Charles, the board meeting is tomorrow morning. It's time to discuss your future role in the company. Everything I built can be yours. She looked at the legal letter again, understanding flowing through her. Charles needed her, not just her kidney, but her very existence, to maintain control of his empire. An empire built on betrayal, manipulation, and calculated cruelty. Standing, she gathered the letters, including the one from the lawyer. Evidence, her mother would call it. Truth, in black and white. Her reflection in the office window showed someone at a crossroads. She could play Charles's game, take the power and wealth he offered, or she could be her mother's daughter, someone who chose integrity over empire, truth over power. Dawn was breaking over Los Angeles as she made her decision. She took a photo of the lawyer's letter and sent it to Mia with a simple message. Time to end the game. The response came immediately. Board meeting starts in 3 hours. Want to make an entrance? Destiny looked at her mother's letters one last time, each one a testament to love that asked nothing in return. Then she typed, Let's show them what real family loyalty looks like. The private wing of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center gleamed with the same sterile wealth as Charles's mansion. Destiny sat in a consultation room, surrounded by certificates and medical diagrams, waiting for test results that would determine if she was a match for the kidney donation. Charles paced by the window, his usual composure fractured by anxiety. He'd insisted on being present for this appointment, claiming it was paternal concern. But Destiny had learned to read him better now. His constant checking of his phone, the way he kept glancing at his watch. He was on a timeline, and it wasn't just about his health. The board meeting's been delayed until this afternoon, he said, breaking the silence. They're waiting for confirmation about the transplant. It will reassure them about the company's stability. Is that all they need reassurance about? Destiny asked quietly. Before he could respond, Dr. Peterson entered, carrying a tablet. Charles straightened, automatically adjusting his tie. Ms. Williams, the doctor began, then glanced at Charles. Would you prefer to receive these results privately? No need, Charles interrupted. I'm her father. Whatever you have to say, I would prefer privacy, Destiny said firmly. Charles's jaw tightened, but he left the room, his expensive shoes clicking against the polished floor. Dr. Peterson waited until the door closed. Ms. Williams, before I give you the results, there's something you should know. She hesitated. Another donor was matched to your father 3 weeks ago. The words hung in the air like smoke. What? A young man, unrelated. He's already been cleared for surgery and is willing to proceed. The doctor looked troubled. Your father asked us not to mention this during your testing process. Destiny felt the room tilt slightly. He already has a donor. Yes. The surgery was scheduled for next month. Dr. Peterson's expression was sympathetic. Given this information, would you still like to know your results? Everything clicked into place. The timing of the viral video, the rush to establish her as his heir, the pressure about the board meeting. Charles hadn't needed her kidney. He'd needed her presence, her blood relationship, her legitimate claim to the Winston name. No, Destiny said, standing. I don't need to know. She found Charles in the hallway, already on his phone discussing board logistics. He looked up as she approached, his expression eager. Well, are we a match? You already have a donor. The phone call ended abruptly. Charles's face went through several calculations before settling on concern. Who told you that? Does it matter? Were you ever going to tell me? Destiny, it's complicated. The board needed to see what your long-lost daughter coming to your rescue. A touching family reunion right before the succession vote. Her voice remained low, but several nurses glanced their way. Was any of this real? Charles grabbed her arm, pulling her into an empty waiting room. Listen to me. Yes, there's another donor. But this was never just about the kidney. This is about legacy, about family. This is about control. Destiny cut him off. The company bylaws require family succession. You needed me established as your heir before the board meeting. His expression hardened. You've been talking to the chance. I've been finding the truth. Something you wouldn't recognize if it came with a price tag. You want truth. Charles's voice turned cold. Here's truth. I built an empire from nothing. Everything I did, every decision I made, was to create something lasting, something powerful. And yes, I need you to help protect it. Because without the Winston name, without family control, everything I built could be taken away by the people you've betrayed to build it, by people who don't understand what it takes to succeed in this world. He checked his watch again. The board meeting is in 3 hours. You can either stand with your family, my family. Destiny laughed bitterly. My family is a single mother who worked honest jobs and taught me honest values. You're just a man who needed my DNA to keep his power. Charles's phone buzzed. Another message about the board meeting. I'm trying to give you everything. No, Destiny said quietly. You're trying to take everything. My kidney, my identity, my integrity. Just like you took Mum's trust, Henry Chen's future, everyone else you stepped on climbing to the top. I'm dying, Destiny. No, you're lying. Again, you have a donor. You have options. What you don't have is my compliance. She walked to the door. The board meeting starts at 2, right? Don't worry, I'll be there. It's time they heard some truth about the Winston family legacy. You'd destroy everything I built. His voice shook with rage. Your own father's life's work. Destiny thought of her mother's unopened letters, of Henry Chen's suicide, of all the lives Charles had casually ruined in his pursuit of power. My father died the day he chose his empire over his family. The man standing in front of me is just a CEO who needed a prop for his board meeting. She left him there, surrounded by the sterile wealth of the private hospital wing. Her phone buzzed. Mia got the documents. Dad's called an emergency pre-meeting with the major shareholders. You ready? Destiny looked back at the waiting room where Charles stood, already on his phone doing damage control. She thought of her mother's words in that last letter. Don't make her one of your pieces. I'm ready, she typed back. Time to show them what real strength looks like. The Winston Tech boardroom occupied the top floor of the corporate headquarters, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Los Angeles. Destiny stood in the elevator, watching the numbers climb, her mother's letters in her bag and Mia's documents on her phone. 25 years of lies were about to meet their moment of truth. Charles was already there when she arrived, standing at the head of the massive table like a king holding court. Board members filled the chairs, old money, tech veterans, and among them, Mia's father, David Chen, his expression unreadable. Security guards stood discreetly by the doors. Charles was leaving nothing to chance. Destiny. Charles's smile was tight. I'm glad you could join us. We were just discussing the company's future. Were you discussing its past too? She remained standing as Charles gestured toward a chair. The real story of how Winston Tech began. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Charles's smile didn't waver. This isn't the time for family discussions. We're here to announce the succession plan and my daughter's new role in the company. You mean your emergency replacement since you lost your kidney donor? The words cut through the room's artificial calm. Several board members exchanged glances. Perhaps we should take a brief recess, Charles suggested, but Destiny was already pulling out her phone. I have here, she said clearly, the original partnership agreements. The ones showing how Charles Winston used other people's investments to secure the government contract that built this company. The ones showing how he systematically eliminated those partners once success was guaranteed. This is inappropriate, Charles snapped. But David Chen held up his hand. Let her speak. Destiny pulled out her mother's letters next. I also have evidence of attempts to silence those who knew the truth, including my mother, who Charles tried to buy off when she discovered what he'd done. These are private family matters, Charles interrupted. They have no bearing on they have every bearing, Destiny continued, because they show a pattern of manipulation that continues to this day, including lying about needing a kidney transplant to emotionally manipulate me into accepting a role in the company before today's vote. The boardroom erupted in murmurs. Charles slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Security. Please escort my daughter out. Actually, Mia spoke up from her seat. I think the board needs to see this first. She projected a document onto the room's main screen. The letter from Charles's lawyer about the succession plan. As you can see, Mia continued, Charles didn't bring Destiny here out of paternal love or medical necessity. He brought her here because the company bylaws require family succession, and he needed to establish her before his other donor's surgery next month. Charles's face had gone pale. This is a misunderstanding. No, Destiny said quietly. This is clarity. Something this company has needed for 25 years. She turned to the board. You all built your success on my father's supposed business genius, but that success was built on betrayal. Just ask David Chen about his brother Henry. Ask any of the original partners who lost everything when Charles Winston decided he didn't need them anymore. You're talking about ancient history, Charles said desperately. What matters is the company's future. The future. Destiny laughed softly. You want to talk about the future? Let's talk about how you were willing to let the board believe I was saving your life by donating a kidney, just so you could maintain control. Let's talk about how you tried to buy my silence, just like you tried to buy my mother's. Let's talk about how nothing has changed in 25 years. You're still the same man who'd sacrifice anyone and anything for power. The boardroom had gone completely silent. Charles gripped the back of his chair, his knuckles white. Everything I did was for this company, for our legacy. No, Destiny said. Everything you did was for yourself. And now you have a choice. Either you tell them the truth, all of it, or I will. Charles looked around the room at the faces of people who'd trusted him, believed in him. For a moment, Destiny saw something crack in his expression. Not calculation this time, but genuine fear. He began, then sank into his chair. You're right. The confession, when it came, was complete. The original betrayals, the covered-up partnerships, the real reason he'd abandoned his family. With each revelation, the board's expression grew darker. Finally, he turned to Destiny. I told myself I was protecting my legacy, but I was just protecting my lies. His voice cracked. I didn't just lose a daughter 25 years ago. I lost my humanity. The board will need to convene privately, David Chen announced, standing. Charles, I think it's best if you step out. As the room cleared, Charles remained seated, looking suddenly old and very alone. What happens now? He asked quietly. Destiny thought of her mother's final letter about choices defining who we are. Now, you face the consequences of your choices, just like Mum did, just like Henry Chen did, just like all the people you sacrifice for your empire. And you, his voice was barely a whisper. Will you take the company? It's still yours by right. No, Destiny said. I'm going home, to my mother, to my life, to the values that matter more than any amount of money or power. She walked to the door, then turned back. Your donor's surgery is next month. Use your second chance better than you used your first. The Los Angeles sun was setting as Destiny left the Winston Tech building for the last time. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. You okay, baby girl? She looked back at the gleaming tower, at the empire built on lies, at the father who had chosen power over love. Then she thought of her mother, who had chosen principles over comfort, integrity over wealth, love over everything else. I'm better than okay, she typed back. I'm free. Later that night, in her old apartment with its water stains and peeling wallpaper, Destiny sat with her mother, sharing a cup of tea like they used to. No crystal glasses, no designer furniture, no artificial perfection. Just real love, real values, real family. You could have had everything, her mother said softly. Destiny squeezed her hand. Mum, thanks to you, I already do.